Vakit kaybetmeden hızla değerli konuşmacılarımızı size tanıtmak isterim. Bir tarafta Francesca Martinelli. İnsan sermayesinin oluşumu ve endüstriyel ilişkiler alanında doktora derecesine sahip. RT-DOC ağı bünyesindeki kooperatiflerin kooperatif geliştirme alanını yönetmekte. DOC Creativity Kooperatifi yönetim kurulunda yer almakta ve ağın araştırma merkezinin direktörlüğünü yürütmekte. Aynı zamanda Legacoop bünyesindeki medya, kültür ve turizm sektörünü temsil eden Kültür Medya'nın başkan yardımcısı. Bunun yanında Sekop'un çalışma yaşamının dönüşümü çalışma grubunun başkanlığını yapıyor. Kendisine çok teşekkür ediyoruz birlikte olduğumuz için bu akşam. Diğer tarafta Thomas Belçika'dan katılıyor. Thomas Belçika'da serbest çalışanlar için kurulmuş Smart Kooperatifinde uzun yıllardır görev yapan bir kooperatifçilik uzmanı. Yönetim bilimleri alanında yüksek lisans, sosyal hizmetler ve muhasebe alanlarında lisans derecesine sahip. 2009 yılında Smart Coop'a katılmış. Farklı görevlerde çalıştıktan sonra kurumun uluslararası savunuculuk sorumlusu olmuştur. Halen Uluslararası Kooperatifler Birliği bünyesindeki kooperatif girişimciliği odaklı ICETT grubunun başkanlığını yürütüyor. Daha önce Flaman kooperatiflerinin çatı örgütü Koopkracht'ta yönetim kurulu üyeliği ve Belçika Ulusal Kooperatifler Konseyi Genel Kurulu üyeliği yapmıştır. İki çocuk babasıdır. Aramıza hoş geldi Thomas der. Vakit kaybetmeden ben ilk sorumu sormak istiyorum Francesca'ya. Bugün seni buraya getiren Dog Servizi nedir? Kimdir? Nasıl bir müşterek ihtiyaca cevap vermektedir?
Thank you very much for the invitation and this evening. Teşekkür ederim. I will talk about Doc Servizi. Doc Servizi is a workers' cooperative that was created in Verona, Italy in 1919 by 10 musicians. And the starting point of their project was very concrete. Uh, Musicians were already gig worker long before even the platforms exist. Exactly, the word gig come from the unique and occasional performance of the musician. So they have always had multiple clients, discontinuous contracts, very low bargaining power. They were often isolated, underpaid, and excluded from social protection systems. This is exactly what we describe today as platform work, but in the hearts, this typology, this way of working existed for centuries. So, in front of this, the collective need was clear. How can people who work independently stop being alone? To answer this question, this group of musicians that worked in Verona decided to create Doc Servizi because they wanted to share an organizational structure. They choose the cooperative model because this model allows them to work in an autonomous way, but within a collective system. The point is that the members of the cooperatives are not clients, they are co-owners. They participate in decisions, they define budgets, strategies, and this is due to the cooperative democratic system based on one person, one vote, one share, one vote. Thanks to this entrepreneurial model, artists can organize their work as they wish. That means they can choose where to work, when to work, who are their clients. But at the same time, they have they access to the right of employees, typical of workers. In Italy, I want to underline that the welfare state also protects cooperative employees as normal and standard employees. And this means that they have some guarantees like paid sick leave, maternity leave, unemployment benefits, and so on. This model has been so successful that today the cooperative Doc Servizi reunites around 6,000 professionals that revolve around the world of entertainment. So, of course, there are musicians, but also technicians, actors, dancers, street and circus performers. And Doc Servizi is also part today of a bigger network that is called Rete Doc, which is simply Network Doc, composed by 5 cooperatives and 4 companies that are completely owned by cooperatives. And this network brings together around 8,000 members, and they are all professionals that work in the cultural and creative industries, in innovation, new technologies. Rete Doc has 23 offices across Italy and a turnover of 85 million euros in 2024. Doc Creativity is a cooperative part of this network and has a similar structure to Doc Servizi and is the cooperative of creative workers. So we are talking about 600 people that cover different fields from photography to audiovisual, from traditional visual arts to digital arts, wood restoration, video game production, urban art, communication, so forth and so on. Doc Creativity members, so they work every day to produce content and narratives with a responsibility that often goes beyond the needs of their clients because they work impact directly on the imagination with the possibility of influencing cultural change. So while creatives perform this role, which also has an important social impact, the cooperative Doc Creativity supports them dealing with bureaucracy, creating collective projects, platforms, and new tools for creative industries. So the mission of the COPs of the Network Doc is simple to state but challenging to put in practice because they want to guarantee dignity, protection, and support to members, offering people the tools and services they need to operate their best and develop meaningful projects. So the collective needs these cooperatives address are not only economic, let's say, but they are about dignity, recognition, and voice. So what this cooperative thinks is that creative workers do not just need an income, but they need to be recognized as workers with right and representation. So for the moment, I stop here.
Thank you very much, Francesca. I will continue speaking in English for the simplicity of the translation. It is impressive and it is very noteworthy in terms of scale in Europe and elsewhere in the world. So now we are jumping without further ado to Belgium, where we have Smart. And Smart not only exists in Belgium, but it is a very impressive story there in that country, and we would like to learn more. Could you please, Thomas, tell us what Smart Belgium is and what kind of a collective need you're addressing?
Sure, I'll try to. Thank you very much for having us. Good evening, or Akshamlar, as you say it. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. Thank you very much for having us. It's a real pleasure to talk about what we do. And every time when I'm invited to talk about Smart, I try to start with talking about the people who are at the center of our community, let's say. So Smart is a community in Belgium of over 40,000 professionals. As you already said, Berkin, we have different divisions in different countries, but I'm going to focus here on the work that we do in Belgium. I'm working, by the way, also in Belgium since 2009 in Smart. So we have to talk about the community of these 40,000 professionals who, let's say, develop an economic activity in the meantime in a very large variety of sectors, and therefore they use one shared enterprise, one cooperative as a shared enterprise. So instead of setting up each individually their own company or their own structure as an independent contractor or any other legal business structure that they manage solely, our professionals sell services, products, goods to their clients via a legal structure that they share with different people, with 40,000 other people. We started out in 1998 as a not-for-profit in Brussels. And since 2016, we organize our structure as a cooperative, as I already said. So we refer to our professionals as our members of our company, members of our cooperative. We often say that our members have multiple roles. And since it's a cooperative under Belgian law, the first role is a role as shareholder of the company, so co-owner of the company. At the same time, a second role, they are also entrepreneurs because they develop the economic activity that is performed within Smart. And a third role is, as we see it, is a role of employee of the company because they are working within Smart, and their working days are declared within the Belgian social security system of the employees, which grants them the most elaborate social protection possible. About half of our members are nowadays active in the artistic sector. So in fact, our model is quite similar to the model of Doc Servizi. We have maybe a different historical path, but it's quite similar. And so about half of our members is nowadays still active in the artistic sector. And this shouldn't come as a surprise since our roots lie in the artistic sector here in Brussels. But over the years, we saw that our artists were not only working in the artistic branches, partially due to the rather small market, small artistic market that we have in quite a small country as Belgium is. But also throughout time, we saw that people who started working with Smart without having any connection with the artistic world, but they worked in, let's say, more or less similar working conditions. Something that Francesca also mentioned. They work with multiple clients in a project mode with very fluctuating periods of income, often combined with other sources of income from other jobs or allowances and so on. And just to give you an idea of the economic size of the group today, as I said, we have 40,000 members, shareholders in the cooperative. About half of them is actively using our services from year to year, with a global annual turnover close to 200 million euros. And of this 200 million euros, about 175 million euros is used to pay the salaries of our professionals, to cover their professional expenses, let's say, and about 25 million euros is used to cover, let's say, the overhead expenses, overhead costs that we make to make our shared enterprise run and to set up the shared services, let's say. Either way, and to get to your question, despite the sectors that they work in, our professionals have all similar working conditions. Like I said, with fluctuating workload, fluctuating income, and so on. And so they have similar needs that they have to, or they want to find addressed within our shared enterprise. I think we can see three big categories of needs, let's say. They are looking for, first of all, for administrative support. They want to be helped out, let's say, to develop their economic activities. The second need is that they look also for economic protection, in the sense that they look for possibilities to develop new activities through partnerships. They look for solutions to manage the fluctuations, as I mentioned, in their income and in their workload. They want to develop professional relationships with peers, with clients, and so on. And then a third category of needs, let's say, is that they are also looking for social stability, a social status that allows them to build up social rights via the contributions that they make to the social security system. So collectively spoken, or on the level of society, I think we play our part in, let's say, closing the gaps to the labor market for a lot of people, helping them to create decent work. And as a cooperative, we also work on democratization. It's also something that Francesca mentioned, democratization, since people are sharing one enterprise, which they manage collectively in a democratic way, in a nutshell.
Çok teşekkürler. Thank you. Thank you very much, Thomas. Continuing in English. I motivate people to ask questions through chat. So please feel free to jot down your questions through the chat box in the meantime. But I would like to jump into the second question, which is going back to Doc Servizi, to Francesca. I would like to ask, what can a cooperative or what does Doc Servizi offer to a freelancer in the creative sector? You already touched upon important aspects, you and Thomas, in terms of the outcomes, stability, predictability, solidarity, mutuality, insurance, etc., etc. But in real terms, in daily life, what would you say are the top three things, top most important thing that a freelancer can get, depending on his or her situation from Doc Servizi?
Thank you. So free is not there are maybe more than free, but I will like try to give a framework perspective. And actually, yeah, Doc Servizi and also Doc Creativity, which is the cooperative for creative workers, they offer something very specific, but it's powerful for this working field, similarly to Smart. First, as already mentioned, some way they offer collective protection because through these cooperatives, freelancers can access contracts, social security, safety at work, unemployment benefit, and also minimum wages based on national collective agreement. For example, in Italy, Doc Servizi and Doc Creativity worked with the trade unions and they achieved concrete results. One example is the first national collective agreement for entertainment workers in COPs, and later the first agreement that regulates platform work in the cultural sector in 2020. Then another set, let's say, of opportunity that you can find in Doc Servizi and Doc Creativity are the shared tools. Some examples are services such as accounting, tax services, specialized training, legal support, fundraising, support in the communication of the activity. There is also travel agency that was created to support the traveling of artists, anticipating the cost of traveling. Debt collection services. There is a marketplace to sell artworks and support for tenders such as the European ones. I for sure forgot something, but what is the point is that these tools have been selected and developed over the years by artists and creative members of these two cooperatives, and they have the purpose to simplify the management of their work and finding new job opportunities. So it's something that could be improved in function of new needs. And also keep in mind that these are tools with no gender differences, of course, because they give equal opportunities to men and women. In the creativity, for example, women are involved right from the design stage of creative projects. And what is important that I want also to underline is also that to manage all these services, these COPs have platforms that are in-house platforms. And this in this cooperative technology is of course used to support members' needs and not to control them. Of course, are members that decided to use platforms, so this can't be exploitative because if you create something, you don't create it to exploit yourself. So they're based on the logic of community and not extractive, not surveillance. A third element I think that I can say is that both Doc Servizi and Doc Creativity offer governance and voice, where rules are decided by members together. Also, working time can be organized around people's lives and with the support of technology. Okay, now, as you asked before, this sounds like a dream, right? I mean, we found a solution for everything, but we discussed about the fact that we want also to state out the limits of this model that we can deny. And the first thing first, which is super important, is that the cooperative can't eliminate risk. That means that creative work remains uncertain, discontinuous, while markets remain unstable. So what a cooperative can do is share that risk. So people are not alone, and cooperatives can be this network, the network that connects people that face similar difficulties, so they can collectively find solutions that can be useful for everyone. What also Thomas mentioned, which is the greater structuring of working cooperatives, the support of technology, the access to social protection, collective agreements. These are all things that allows a better planning for work and income. And so, for example, thanks to this, dog servizi musicians earn the 65% more than the average Italian musician. And if I can keep on, I have another limit. I can, okay. It's an opportunity, but also a problem sometimes, which is the participation. Because in a cooperative, people aren't passive users. You are not somebody that goes there and use this as a service or something that is outside of you. People are part of the organization. And Doc Servizi and Doc Creativity, but also Smart, are examples of artists and creative workers that move from asking for protection to building it together. And the message that they want to convey by saying it is that these systems are not perfect, but they are constantly evolving. And this development is exactly linked to the fact that it's also not always easy to measure the impact of these cooperatives because we are talking about different criteria than the economic performance or the efficiency at all costs. We are talking about fairness, dignity, shared responsibility. And of course, no one is forced to join a cooperative, but if you choose that, you have to be aware that you're entering in a collective project to work differently. So it's a way to safeguard individuality, but it doesn't deny individuality, but at the same time, you're part of a social tissue. And so the point is that cooperatives ask freelancers that face these kind of difficulties, such as isolation and precariousness, not to join a company or use a service, but to become part of a committed community.
Thank you very much, Francesca. A lot of concepts, a lot of discussion points, which goes beyond this webinar. But meanwhile, we have received a lot of interesting questions. But without further ado, and minding the time constraint of Thomas, let me ask the same question to Thomas, and then I'll jump into the question and answer. What can a cooperative offer to a freelancer in the creative sector, and what it cannot? Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you very much. And I must say, by the way, I'm very flattered by the young cooperators that I see sitting on your lap. The next generation is already joining us. No, I think the story of Smart is quite similar, as I already said, as what Francesca mentioned. We try to organize the support that we provide for our members via a set of tools and services that in the first place allow them to manage and develop their economic projects. If we talk about the tools and services of Smart, then we talk about, for instance, a digital platform that is 24/7 accessible for them, to have them let's say the managerial tasks like invoicing, setting up contracts, and so on. That also all happens via a digital platform that is 24/7 accessible. But we also have personalized first-line support via our advisors. We have legal support for people when it comes to closing contracts or when they need mediation in case of conflict with third parties like clients, social and fiscal services, and so on. That also happens via the shared enterprise. We have financial tools like for follow-up of payments, or again, as Francesca mentioned, via debt collection and so on, cash provision, even loans at very low costs when they have to do investments and so on. And one of the main services, let's say, is also the fact that they have access to social protection, the most elaborate social protection system, and they have access to decent work with guaranteed labor conditions and so on. So I think this covers more or less the tools and services that we provide. And this is logically linked to the needs, as we mentioned before. The economic protection that they seek is very strongly linked to these services, but it's also found in the fact that they mutualize or they share the risks with thousands of other people. They don't have to carry the risks of, for instance, a delayed payment, for instance, by themselves individually. It is covered by the whole community, let's say. You can also say that there's a part of preventing risks involved because, for instance, we have educational programs, we have potential partnerships that we try to set up amongst our members and so on. And this protection lies also in the fact that Smart assumes the role of an intermediate between the professional and the clients. All contractual actions are closed between Smart and the client. And so in case of conflict, whether it's concerning payment delays or on the level of the content of the work, the client, which is buying the goods from our members then, let's say, will turn to Smart, and it will be Smart who will mediate and act on behalf of the professional. So this is due to the fact that legally spoken, the professional is working and engaged as an employee, which means that they are protected by the employer, despite of the fact that the professional is autonomous in the organization of his or her work, let's say. And this employee status is also strongly linked to the third need that I mentioned before concerning the social status or the social stability that people often seek. The fact that people are declared as salaried workers means that Smart assumes its role as an employer. And it also means that the contributions are calculated and paid in the social security of the security system of the employees, which then grants them the most elaborate social protection when it comes to, for instance, access to unemployment fees, healthcare, pension, and so on. And as you mentioned, we should not only talk about the amazing part, because it may sound great, and most of the time it is. But as everyone knows, every coin has a flip side, and so this means that also for our shared enterprise, we have multiple challenges. I think the most often cited challenge within any cooperative is concerning member participation, or one of the most cited challenges is concerning member participation. Particularly for a cooperative like ours that becomes quite large with over 40,000 members, a household of 40,000 members, it's quite challenging to maintain, let's say. And so this means that there's a lot of people who can potentially be involved in strategic and more day-to-day decisions. But if you want to move on, and if you even want to survive just as a company on a day-to-day basis, then you sometimes have to be organized in a very practical way. So you have to delegate decisions and so on. And also, if we do want as many people as possible, let's say, to get involved, but we have to acknowledge that not every individual member has the same ambition in terms of participating in the management of the cooperative. And it's sometimes also good, let's say, that the General Assembly can delegate some responsibilities to the board and to the management structure. But indeed, as also Francesca mentioned, we try to point out indeed for people who join us that they're not joining any other company, but they're joining a cooperative, which means that they have a specific engagement to take, let's say. And maybe a final challenge to point out lies more in the contextual and political context, which we faced or we saw changing, let's say, the last couple of years here in Belgium. It is, for instance, linked to the fact that a lot of our professionals combine their income that they gather via Smart with income from other sources, like, for instance, allowances, like unemployment fees or pensions and so on. And so when our political establishment decides to reform these social security systems, well, then it has inherently consequences for our organization and for the organization of the professional lives of our members. And since I joined Smart in 2009, we had, for instance, a pension reform that allowed retired people to gather an income up until a certain amount free from tax via some kind of flexi job system. And so these people did no longer need Smart to organize their work, let's say. And since this summer, last summer, 2025, a reform of unemployment fees also was announced by our current government, which entered into force the 1st of January of this year. And so this means that people can only apply for unemployment fees up until a maximum period of 2 years. And so we have to see and wait, let's say, a little bit of how this will affect the activities and the organization of the lives of our members, but it will have consequences for sure. So this is also one of the challenges that we face. We work in a contextual environment that can change over time, let's say. So these are a couple of the challenges that we face. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So we have received in the meantime interesting questions. I invite you to answer directly if you like, but I would like to shortlist a couple of interesting questions, and we have 5 minutes for that. The first question is, what is the critical challenge, or what is the most critical threshold for local communities to organize around cooperatives? Is it the building of trust? Is it the definition of collective need? Is it the design of the economic model, or something else? What is the most critical thing in terms of building up or organizing around cooperatives, especially for the creative sector? And one other question relates to the usage rights and copyright, which Francesca already touched upon. Maybe before you go, Thomas, you may want to speak about the copyright issues and one interesting aspect about the business development. Have you seen your cooperatives incubating or facilitating new business development for your members? I understand that the cooperative is not tasked to do so, but perhaps a networking opportunity or something else, if you'd like to add.
Francesca, do you want to go or do I?
You can go. It's okay.
Okay. Now, this last question makes me think a little bit of a question that was also popped up in the chat on COVID. That specific period was interesting. It was interesting. It was a hard period for everyone, I think, but it was interesting to see how our members, who were very strongly linked to artistic sectors and event sectors and so on, as you know, specifically those two sectors were from one day on another put on hold, let's say. And so it was very interesting afterwards to see how quick people could shift to other professions. We have seen a downfall in our general turnover, which is logical because of the fact that these two important sectors for us were put on hold. But at the same time, the loss in turnover, or the downfall in turnover, was relatively limited, in the sense that we had a downfall of turnover of 20%. So it means that a lot of our members had the capacity to shift their economic activities and gain an income from other sectors or other activities, let's say, that they had. I must be honest that I think the effort that Smart did on that one was quite limited. It was just offering the possibility to shift from job, but it was not Smart that from one day on or another organized educational programs or reorientation programs or whatsoever. What we did do was in link with the social security system and with the capacity that we have as a company, was provide loans, for instance, to overcome a complex period and so on, for our members who are really affected by the COVID crisis and who had no opportunity to quickly shift from one sector to another. So the people who were really in precarious conditions due to COVID, for instance, we have had the possibility to help them out a little bit. But the most interesting thing, I think, is linked to your question and also linked to the question in the chat on the COVID period, is the fact that we saw that people had very strong capacities to, let's say, find new solutions and find new economic opportunities apart who were not in their normal sectors, let's say.
Thank you, Thomas. Over to Francesca for any responses to the questions.
So, thank you. So I will answer the COVID too. So I connect, and then the other question super difficult about the cooperative community. But then, Concerning COVID, Doc Servizi, Doc Creativity and the network, they did mainly two things. The first one was continuous support to members, so psychological, let's say. We were supporting each other, and the cooperative also organized free courses to participate, but they were organized in connection with the state and the government, and so there was the opportunity to pay people that participate to these trainings. So people were paid by participating in this training course, and there were like 300 persons that were involved. So it was a little relief for people, and there were many actions that were done in this way. On the other side, the cooperative did the lobby for supporting artists. They were the first that in Italy couldn't work anymore, so cooperative advocate for them and help them to obtain bonuses and money from the government. That the first, the sector was the first closing and the last helped. But in this way, they obtain financial support from the state thanks to the lobby. Concerning the difficulties in being a cooperative community of creative workers, it depends on the size, it depends on the place. I'm not thinking about maybe Doc Servizi or Doc Creativity because they are very big already. But thinking about also little realities, one difficulty is for sure. The first difficulty, I think, is understand that the cooperative model could be a solution to work together. It's a natural solution for some people because it's an opportunity to work together, to share a project with limited money, because the point is that cooperatives usually are born in areas where there are little resources. You can build a cooperative putting €1. For example, Doc Servizi was created with 100,000 lira, that is €50 each. The social capital was very low, and now we're talking about a big cooperative, so you can start really from little. But often it's not easy to understand that this can be a model. In some countries, the law is not helping, and structuring a cooperative can be also complicated because of democracy. It's not easy to understand how to build it. It can be an interesting journey, but not immediate. Then, of course, I don't know who wrote the question, but all of your questions are true. It's very difficult also to find a business model. Sometimes, where do you start from? Selling something, building something else. So this is very, very complicated, but I think the first thing first is to understand that this model exists. And so moments like this today are very important to show that an alternative exists, and is an alternative that we can build. We don't have to wait for somebody else, to find an answer to our problems. Teşekkür ederim.
Very much. I'm now switching to Turkish. Çok teşekkürler. Değerli vaktiniz için Francesca, Thomas. Katılımınız, görüşleriniz, deneyiminiz bizim için ilham verici. O yüzden de bu toplantıların adını İlham Buluşması koymuştuk. İletişimde kalmayı sürdüreceğiz. Kooperatifler arası işbirliği, co-op to co-op işbirliği devam edecek. Biz Genç İşi Kooperatif olarak 10. yılımızda Co-op Akademi programıyla bu faaliyetleri kolaylaştırmayı, noktaları birleştirmeyi sürdüreceğiz memnuniyetle. Hiç vakit kaybetmeden Metin'den rica ediyorum. Bir tanıtım videomuz var Co-op Akademi programı ile ilgili. Onu izleyelim ve ondan sonra Koray, Çağlayan'a sözü vereceğim. Co-op Akademi programı neymiş, ne değilmiş, nasıl katılınıyor, içeriğinde ne var, ne yok, ondan bahsetmesi için. Buyurunuz, video ile devam ediyoruz.
Harika, teşekkürler. Hemen yukarıda sağ sekmede açıldı. Videoyu başlatıyorum. Buyurun.
Şahane. Şimdi vakit kaybetmeden hemen Koray'a veriyorum sözü. Koray, sendeyiz.
Teşekkürler Berkin. Herkese merhaba. Umarım herkes beni rahatça duyabiliyordur ve ekranımı görebiliyordur. Eee, Harika konuşmalardı bu. Böyle kooperatif hikayeleri dinleyince ne kadar okusak da öğrensek de kooperatiflerle ilgili hep öğrenecek, konuşacak ve duyacak daha fazla şey olduğunu anlıyor insan. Dolayısıyla çok değerli bunlar. Bizim aslında yola çıkışımız da böyle bir noktadandı Coop Akademi ile ilgili. Ben Koray Çağlayan, Washington DC'de yaşıyorum ve burada bir kar amacı gütmeyen bir firmada ekonomist olarak çalışıyorum. Aynı zamanda bir üniversitede ekonomi ve istatistik dersleri veriyorum. Bundan bir buçuk sene önce genç kooperatifle irtibata geçtim. Ben size nasıl yardımcı olabilirim diye. Ama kafamda hep bir eğitim programı tasarlamak, bir eğitim programı ortaya çıkarmak vardı ve Berkinlerle birlikte bunun üzerine çalışıp bunu hayata geçirmiş olduk. Ve şimdi bunu sizlerle paylaşmaktan açıkçası çok mutluyum. Size Coop Akademi ile ilgili kısa bilgiler vereceğim zamanımızın el verdiği sürece. Diğer eğitimlerden bizi ayıran biraz ne ondan bahsedeceğim. Somut kazanımlarımızdan bahsedeceğim. Kooperatif girişimcilik eğitim programının hafta hafta içeriklerinden biraz söz edeceğim size çok kısa kısa. Bir de sırada ne var? Coop Akademi sadece kooperatif girişimcilik değil, başka eğitimler de tasarlıyor bir taraftan. Onlar hakkında da size bilgi vermek istiyorum bugün. Beş somut kazanımlardan ilki şu. e, Bu sadece hafta hafta size bilgilerin üzerinize atılması, bir takım okumalar verilmesi değil. Sonunda hayalinizdeki kurmak istediğiniz kooperatif için bir model, bir planla ayrılacaksınız bu eğitimden. Ve bundan da hepinizin bildiği gibi kooperatif ve kooperatiflik bundan daha fazlası. Biraz bir yaşama biçimi, hayata bakış biçimi olduğu için aslında parçası olmak istediğiniz hikayeyi yazacaksınız bizimle birlikte 8 haftada. Burada doğru soruları sormak önemli. Onu önemsiyoruz ilk haftada konuştuğumuz gibi gerçek ihtiyaç ne? O ihtiyaçtan yola çıkalım istiyoruz. Ee, O soruların cevaplarını ve ihtiyacın nasıl karşılanacağı üzerinde birlikte düşünelim istiyoruz ve hep yazacağız. Bu ihtiyacı nasıl karşılayacağız? Doğru soruların cevapları nedir? Ve revize edeceğiz. Ve yeniden revize edeceğiz. Nasıl revize edeceğiz? Burada yine genç kooperatifin dostlarından yararlanacağız. Uzman kişilerden mentorluk ve tecrübe aktarımı olacak. Bu ikinci bir somut kazanım bu eğitimin. Çünkü doğru soruları doğru kişilere sormak lazım ve yazdığımız şeylerin, düşüncelerimizi kağıda döktüğümüz şeylerin aslında konusunda uzman insanlardan geri bildirimler aldığımız sürece daha iyi revize edebileceğimizi düşünüyoruz. Yani ikinci kazanımımız da bu olacak bu eğitimde. Hep uygulamalı bir eğitim olarak düşündük. Sadece girişimciliği değil, diğer programları da onlardan da bahsedeceğim. Dolayısıyla hep vaka analizleri olacak. Bugün yaptığımız gibi Francesca Thomas'ın söylediklerinden hep bir şeyler gördük, onları analiz ettik. Bu eğitimde de bunu yapacağız. Vaka analizleri yapacağız. Sahada gözlem yapacağız ve hep kısadan hisselerle ilerleyeceğiz bu eğitimde. Bunun değerli olduğunu düşünüyoruz. Bu eğitimi alan katılımcılar aslında bir ağın içine girmiş oluyorlar. Şu anda Coop Akademi'nin bir mezunu yok ama ilerleyen zamanlarda bir mezun ağı oluşturacağız ve siz bu eğitime aldıktan sonra bu mezun ağın içine gireceksiniz ve bu mezun ağının size sunduğu olası yeni ortaklıklardan, olası yeni işbirliklerinden yararlanacaksınız. Bu da önemsediğimiz somut kazanımlardan bir tanesi Coop Akademi'nin. Ve son olarak aldığımız her eğitimin sonunda bize bir sertifika veriyorlar. İyi kötü bir PDF dosyası şeklinde ama biz bunu biraz daha ciddiye almak istiyoruz. Bir dijital sertifika LinkedIn'de bir blockchain korumalı bir sertifikayla uğurlamak istiyoruz katılımcıları. Ve bundan daha önemlisi aslında bu katılımcı genç kooperatif ve koop akademinin gönüllülüğü altında olacak. Yani o an içine girmiş olacak ve her zaman bizimle birlikte olacak. O ilişkisi hiç bitmeyecek Koop Akademi ile ve genç kooperatif ile bu eğitimi alan katılımcının. Bu 5 somut kazanımı peki nasıl yapacağız? Bir de programa bakalım kısaca. 8 hafta 8 modül gibi tasarladık. Modül 1'de yine bugün Berkin'in sorduğu Francesca Thomps'a sorular gibi müşterek ihtiyaçtan doğan girişim. Yani önce ihtiyacımızı belirleyeceğiz. Çünkü doğru noktadan doğru nedenlerle yola çıkmak istiyoruz. Yani eğitimin sonunda şöyle bir şey olursa bu da iyi bir sonuçtur aslında. Ya benim kafamdaki şey aslında kooperatife tam uymuyor. Bu da aslında bence o katılımcıyı yanlış bir yerden yola çıkarmamak adına atılmış önemli bir adım diye düşünüyoruz. Dolayısıyla Francesca'nın cevaplarında da gördüm. Çok bilinmiyor kooperatifçilik aslında bu model. Dolayısıyla bunun hakkında doğru bilinen yanlışlar, yanlış bilinen doğrular ya da hiç bilinmeyenleri bu ilk haftada aslında oturup konuşmak istiyoruz katılımcılarla. İkinci modül birlikte kurmak üzerine biz kimiz? Burada bayağı kooperatifinde kimler olacak diye oturup bir liste üzerinde çalışıyoruz katılımcılarla. İşte burada yazdım Pelin, Serdar, kardeşim Ozan. Ama bu liste her hafta revize edilecek. Çünkü gördüğünüz gibi dördüncü haftada ya bizim bir ekonomisye ihtiyacımız var gibi bir eklenti olabilir. Ha, bir de sosyal medya analisti lazım böyle bir kooperatife diye. Aslında kooperatifin karşılamak istediği sosyal, kültürel ve ekonomik ihtiyaçları nasıl bir ekiple karşılayabileceğine dair bir taslak oluşturmak istiyoruz. Ve hayallerimizi ve fikirlerimizi artık biraz kağıda dökelim ve bir ana sözleşme yazalım diyeceğiz ikinci haftada. Modül 3 birlikte karar almak en zor şeylerden bir tanesi yönetişim, roller ve iletişim kültürü. Burada yine uygulamalı hep durumlar, süreçler, roller ve araçlarla ilerleyeceğiz. Eğitimcilerin üzerine değişik senaryolar, karar verme, gerilimler atıp onları çözmelerini isteyeceğiz. Ve yatay yönetişimin, katılımın, ortak akılın bu sorunlara nasıl uygulanabileceği, bu sorunların nasıl çözülebileceği ile ilgili yine uygulamalı alıştırmalarımız var. Modül 4 kime ne sunuyoruz? Ürün, hizmet geliştirme ve sosyal pazarlama. Pazarlama her girişimcilik eğitiminde olan bölümlerden bir tanesi biliyorsunuz. Ama burada vurgulamak istediğimiz pazarlamanın üzerinden geçelim. Bir ürün, bir hizmet nasıl pazarlanır ama kooperatifler bağlamında bunun aslında anlam yaratma altında nasıl yeniden şekillenebileceğini konuşacağız katılımcılarla. Ve her aslında modülde olduğu gibi bir şeyle ilgili tereddüt ettiğinde, tam nereye gittiğini anlamadığında modül 1'e geri dönüp ihtiyaca geri dön, ihtiyacı tekrar bir üzerinden geçelim deyip tekrar nereye gittiğimizi, yolumuzu bir daha bir belirleyelim diyeceğiz. Ee, Ve kooperatif olmanın ürün ve hizmet geliştirmede, pazarlamada ne gibi avantajları, ne gibi dezavantajları olabilir? Yani kooperatif olmanın ne gibi de farklılıkları olabilir? Onun üzerinden konuşacağız dördüncü haftada. Parayla ilişkiyi konuşmak zorundayız. Kooperatifin finansal temelleri, finansal işleyiş, kaynaklar, nereden kaynak bulacağız ve en önemlisi sürdürülebilirlik. Ve bunu şöyle planlıyoruz. Bir takım prensiplerimiz ve hayallerimiz var kooperatifimizle ilgili, kurmak istediğimiz kooperatifle ilgili. Bunları nasıl bir finansal tasarım ve stratejiye dönüştürebiliriz? Yine e, biz katılımcıyı bu yolda biraz tam söylemeyeceğiz ne olduğunu ama eşlik edeceğiz kendisinin bulması için hayallerini ve prensiplerini kurmak istediği kooperatifte nasıl finansal tasarım ve stratejiye dönüştürebileceği ile ilgili. Hep birlikte düşünmek üzerine tasarlıyoruz bu eğitimi. Dayanışmayla büyümek, iş ve kaynak geliştirme, dış paydaşlarla ilişki. Bunu şöyle planladık. Aslında rekabetçi serbest piyasa ekonomisinde bir kooperatif nasıl hayatta kalabilir? Nasıl kaynak ve iş geliştirebilir ve nasıl büyüyebilir? Fonlar ve hibeler bu bildiğimiz ve çokça kullanılan yollardan bir tanesi. Ama bunun dışında alternatif neler yapılabilir diye düşünürken kardeş kooperatif diye bir fikrimiz var. Onu da bu modülün altında uygulamaya koymayı düşünüyoruz. Kardeş kooperatif biraz kooperatifler arası işbirliği gibi en başta duyuluyor ama aslında öyle değil. Kardeş kooperatif bir şirketin bugün yatırımcı bazlı bir şirketin aslında bir kooperatifi biraz kardeş kabul edip beraber iş yapması ve o kooperatif kendi ayakları üzerinde durabilene kadar onu kardeş kabul edilmesi gibi bir proje. Onun üzerinden modül 6'yı biraz uygulama olarak yapmayı düşünüyoruz o projeyi de kullanarak. 7. haftada sesimizi nasıl duyururuz? Etki tasarımı ve kooperatif sunumu. Biz neden varız? Bunu biz tasarlarken de biraz bir dakika neden var bir kooperatif diye aslında bir varoluşsal bir krize sürüklendik. Ve ama hep kendimize de şunu hatırlattık. Hangi sorunu çözüyoruz, biz neden varız? Bu soruları biz cevaplamıştık modül 1'de. Hangi ihtiyaca yönelik kurduk biz bu kooperatifi diye. Yine panik yapma, modül 1'e geri dön diyeceğiz katılımcılara. Ve şunu diyeceğiz, tamam biz neden varız, hangi sorunu çözüyoruz biliyoruz ama bunu göstermeli miyiz? Nasıl göstereceğiz gösterirsek ve kooperatif olmanın 3 nokta. Avantajları, dezavantajları, farklılıkları e, nasıl kullanılabilir diye beraber düşüneceğiz katılımcılarla. Ve eğer bunları göstermeye karar verirsek nasıl sunarız bunları diye biraz sunum araçlarından da daha teknik konulardan da bahsedeceğiz katılımcılara. Son haftamız saha, yerinde öğrenme ve kapanış. Bir kooperatife gideceğiz, ziyaret edeceğiz bir kooperatifi ve orada hedefe yönelik gözlemler yapacağız. Yani her katılımcının gözlemleyeceği şey önceden belli olacak ve bunun üzerine daha sonra onların analizlerini paylaşacağız. Ve kooperatif planlarımızı gerçek bir kooperatifle ve onun ortaklarıyla paylaşacağız. Ve onlardan geri bildirimler alacağız. Ve tekrar revize edeceğiz ve finalize edeceğiz kooperatif planımızı. 8 haftayı çok kısaca anlattım tabii. Böyle planladık. Ve çok da heyecanlıyız ilk pilot uygulamamız için. Sırada ne var diye hemen şey yapacağım. Zamanımız da doldu biliyorum Berkin. Ama şöyle, birinci programımız kooperatif girişimcilik. Bu anlattığım 8 hafta. İkinci programımız biraz daha bildiğimiz klasik üretici kooperatifleri üzerinde duracağız. Bu daha tarımsal üretim gibi. Burada da şöyle bir uygulamalı e, yaklaşım seçmeyi düşünüyoruz. Onun üzerine tasarlıyoruz, inşa ediyoruz bütün programı. Bir yöre veya o yörede bir üretici kooperatifi seçilecek. Ve bütün 8 hafta o kooperatif üzerine veya o yöredeki kooperatif ihtiyacı üzerine inşa edilecek. Yani katılımcılar bir taraftan üretici kooperatiflerini öğrenirken diğer taraftan da mevcut üretici kooperatifinin sorunları, çıkmazları üzerinde çalışıp veya o yöredeki bir ürünü veya bir hizmetin nasıl pazarlanabileceği, nasıl bir kooperatife dönüştürülebileceği üzerinde de uygulamalar olarak çalışacaklar. Üçüncü program öğrenci yurt kooperatifleri. Bu da şöyle, aslında Türkiye'deki çok ciddi bir soruna ve ihtiyaca cevap arayan bir program olacak bu. Temelinde yurt dışındaki deneyimleri ve örnekleri alıp bunları tanıtacağız katılımcılara ve Türkiye'deki hukuki olarak, yapısal olarak, finansal olarak nasıl uygulanabiliri yine katılımcılarla hep beraber düşünüp bunun bir çerçevesini çizeceğiz 8 haftada. Burada duruyorum Berkin. Zamanımız da doldu. Ama temel olarak kooperatifçilikle ilgili Coop Akademi programlarımız bunları katılımcılarla paylaşmak üzerine tasarlanmış durumda.
Çok
Herkese çok
teşekkürler.
teşekkürler.
Çok teşekkürler Koray. Bugünkü programımızın sonuna geldik. Önümüzdeki günlerde bir saniye geçin. Coop Akademi programımızın ne zaman başlayacağı, hangi içeriklerde olacağı, ne şekillerde icra edileceğine dair bilgileri bizim sosyal medya hesaplarımızı takip ederek öğrenebilirsiniz. Birinci program Nisan ayında ilan edilecek. Mart ayında ilan edilecek, Nisan ayında başlayacak. Birlikte